My name is Ben, and I lead the return here at the College Age Ministry here at Northside, and I have the privilege of hanging out with you guys all the time, and so that's where you guys are at tonight. I know we've come out of the gates this last week with our Freeway series, and I'm really excited about it. It was incredibly encouraging this whole last week to have my news feed just full of all these pictures of groups and this and that, of everything that kind of started last week and everything that so many of you have been diving in on your journals with. Just super encouraged by that and encouraged about what we're going to be diving into in the next several weeks coming up. And so tonight we're going to jump in on some new stuff, unpacking the idea of awareness. And so a couple things real quick. If you were not with us last week, we got into new groups. And one of the things that we're going to do is whenever we go to break into groups, you're going to be like, well, I'm not in a group. You're going to come up here and I'm going to help you land in a group, okay? And so that's a really easy thing, and so we'll just sprinkle you out where it makes the most sense. And the other thing is this series that we're in, it's called Freeway, and in the back are workbooks. They're only $5, and what it is it's a journal that will unpack some things, help you unpack some things in your life in a devotional way, okay? It's the whole point of it is to bring about fruition of freedom, okay? And so those things are in the back, and what I encourage everybody every week is to bring a Bible. If you don't have a Bible, we've got some in the back. If you don't own one of your, like literally one of your own, take one of those that's back there and keep it, call it your own, okay? Just use it, all right? But I always encourage people to bring something to write with, something to write on, and so every week we're going to try and share some things that will hopefully be useful in our lives, okay? So that's kind of the plan for tonight, and if you remember last week, one other thing. Shockley and company have been working really hard to take what we share on Wednesday nights and put that online. And so I know a lot of students that are away right now are being able to watch this online. A few days from now, they'll be able to. But every week, last week's message and our time together goes online. And so if you miss a week, like last week, catch it online. You can just hit our blog, wearethereturn.com, and it's all on there. And I really appreciate Shockley working so hard and Elena working so hard to get that stuff ready for us. So, okay, so last week we began with the Freeway series with two goals. And the first is this, to identify the things that hold us hostage. We've got to be able to identify the things that just enslave us, the things that hold us captive, okay? And the other goal we set out to have is be set free. To be set free, okay? And we really can't be set free if we can't identify what we need free from, okay? And so that's what the next several weeks is going to be about. That's the journey that we're on in this Freeway series. And so tonight we're going to be talking about awareness, this idea of knowledge, okay, and perception about a situation or a fact, okay? That's what it means to be aware, okay? We've all got habits, right? How many of you guys have habits? Yes. Right? How many of you have habits that like you're okay with them, right? You're like I'm okay with that I do this, right? How many of you have habits that you're like I do not like that I do this? Yeah. How many of you pick your nose at stoplights? JD, not just at stoplights. Truth, right there. Statistically, it's like what, like 98% do, and then the other 2% are lying. Okay, I guess. We've all got habits. We've all got routines. We've all got rhythms that we are aware of, things that we just do. But we also have things, we've got habits, we've got rhythms and routines, things we do that we aren't aware of. We've all got blind spots. And so tonight what we're going to try and do is touch on this question of how aware are you of the things going on around you? How aware are you of the things going on around you? A couple of stories real quick. First is this. My little girl, Kala, okay? I had to ask my wife permission on this because I wanted to share a couple of videos with you. And when it comes to awareness, this little girl, if you've ever met Kala, she was the one that I was walking around with tonight. She is a bundle of awesomeness crammed into this itty-bitty body. Her personality is bigger than the rest of our family combined, okay? There is so much sweetness and preciousness and sass bundled up into this little 5-year-old that's about to be 6, she thinks 16, okay? Well, one of the things that she does, she loves to sing, she loves to dance, and when she is, the head is moving, the hands are out, and all this stuff. And one of the things that happens is Daddy sees the opportunity to capture those moments. And so I want to share with you one of those moments. Nope, not that one. Hold on, not that one. Wait for it. That one. Okay, she has no idea that she's being videoed right there, and she's songwriting. That's not a song that she knows. She's just making up her own words, and that's why you see the hand going, and she's writing her own melody, okay? All right, and it's so adorable to me because when she's in that zone, it's another dimension, okay? And it's hard to get her out of it unless this happens. Okay, do you see what happened there? She's doing the same thing. She's only that one. She's listening to a song specifically, and she's like doing the head thing and the hand thing, all this kind of stuff. She's completely unaware that Daddy is filming her. But the moment she becomes aware, you have a reaction and you have a change of course. Okay? And it's a scream and it's I'm getting out of here. Okay? Now, I have tons and tons of footage of this little girl breaking on through to the other side, okay? I mean, just dancing her heart out, and she has no idea. And someday when she gets married, we're going to get to play all of it at the reception. But it's the most precious thing to see that. And at the same time, those are things she just does that she's not tuned in and aware of what's going on around her when she's in that frame of mind. Another thing I think of is this. Whenever I take teams to Romania, the level of travel awareness necessary to navigate airports in other countries with a group of people that may or may not know what they're doing, okay? Cultural awareness, all these things kind of collide into this same space. I remember this one time. This was a long, long time ago. I used to tour in a rock band, and so this is a long time ago. We had a fly date. We're being flown to Portland, Oregon to play a rock show, and then basically fly back to catch another show. So we're going all over the place, and we're tired. We're just really tired, and here's a moment of lack of awareness, okay? We're in line, and this is post 9/11, okay? And so like TSA agents, all this kind of stuff, they're all very tuned in to the things you say, like you're never supposed to say bomb or things like that in an airport, right? We get to the gate, and they're at that point, they're still doing like the secondary gate, like check, after they've already checked your bag through the whatchamithings, they'll check it before you get on the plane and then zip tie it so that you can't put anything else in it. And they're running it through again. And I'm standing there, and I kind of step back from the thing, and I'm talking to our guitar player, and I was like, I am so tired. I can't wait to get on this plane and crash. And I hear, excuse me? Like that. I open my eyes to this TSA agent, eyes this big. Turns out you don't say things like that in airports, okay? And I was so tired. I hadn't slept in quite a while, and I was pretty out of it, and I was completely unaware of what had just actually come out of my mouth. What I meant was, obviously, I wanted to sleep. Don't say crash at the airport in reference to getting on a plane, okay? Just a heads up. Sometimes our awareness is not tuned in, okay? I know for me, that was Nate Ross. Here's a tangent. Nate Ross, I was also traveling with him one time, and our drummer, okay, this was another fly date, our drummer kept setting off the metal detectors because he had knee surgery, and so like it kept setting it all off, and he goes, well, it's probably because the gun's in your pants, like that. That got us in trouble too. That's our associate pastor. So I'm not the only one. But the reminder is this: how aware of you of the things going on around you? How aware are you of the things? How knowledgeable, how perceptive are you of the situations and the circumstances and the facts that are happening all around you? If you are not noticing things on the outside, you will never notice what's going on inside. Say that again. If you are not noticing things on the outside, you will never notice what's going on inside. And if we want to be free of the things that hold us hostage, we have to become aware. We've got to become aware of what really is going on in our hearts, okay? It's so important that we start wrestling with what's happening here, okay? And to begin to pull back the curtain on all these habits, these blind spots that we all have, these things that we do that we maybe don't even know why, okay? But we've got to begin to start connecting the dots between the why and the what. And here's what I mean by that. What? Our lives are filled with a bunch of whats, things that we do. Like, we do tons and tons of things. Those are whats. Like what we do here, what we do there, what we do in this place, or what we do in that place. Our lives are filled with whats. Our lives are also filled with whys. And what we've got to be able to do is identify why we do what, okay? Because for everything that you do, there's a reason. And sometimes you know the reason, a lot of times we don't. Whether you're picking your nose at a stoplight or not, well, one reason why is, well, you got something that needs picked, right? Right? But etiquette says, that's probably not when you do that, okay? Because the person looking over at you, that's Snapchatting your little experience, okay? They're thankful because they have something to post, but the reality is like, if we don't know why we do what we do, we're going to miss some stuff, and it's going to keep us from being aware. So we've got to know why we do what we do. We need to know the why behind the what if we want to be free. We have to know the why behind the what if we want to be free. We have to become aware, and we can't really become aware if we don't slow down first. First things first, slow down. Life is fast, life is full. I'm no stranger to that. We've all got a lot of things pulling us in different directions, competing for our time, for our energy, for our focus. I mean, how hard is it to stay focused for any length of time, no matter how studious you are? So much is going on around us that it pulls us in tons of different directions, competing for all of those elements of our life, those commodities, our time, our energy, our focus, our love. So many things are competing. So how do we increase our awareness in a world moving so fast? There's a couple things I want to help us out here with, okay? The first is this: life is loud, and the voice of God is not. The speed of life competes with the voice of God. We're so easily distracted, aren't we? Like the movie Up, like the dog's like, squirrel, right? I mean, constantly, like, we will see things and we'll be on something. And then as soon as something else happens, we'll switch gears and we'll be distracted. We'll be preoccupied quicker than anything. It's amazing how hard it is to stay focused. And some of you right now, you're like, I'm not even paying attention to you now. Like, I've already checked out, okay? Don't tell me, okay? Just don't tell me, okay? Matt just picked something from his nose. He's like, I'm not listening. I'm kidding. It's not your nose? Okay, it's not his nose. It wasn't. It looked like his nose. But here's the deal. We get distracted. We get preoccupied. And if we want to hear the voice of God, we have to slow down. We have to put on the brakes. We have to turn down the volume of everything else. The story of Elijah in 1 Kings, a prophet of God. You can flip there. I'm going to be reading some of the stuff from the New Living Translation, but it's kind of a big story, so I'm going to kind of give you the flyby of it, okay? But you can find it in 17, 18, 19, in those chapters. And so basically, here's what you have. In Israel, you've got King Ahab, okay? If you read through the Old Testament, if you read through some of these history books, you'll find, like, basically they give an account for who did what and why they did it, okay? And Ahab is kind of in the category of he did evil in the eyes of the Lord, okay? And so after so many kings, it will say they were just bad at being a person, okay? Because of their choices, okay? And this guy, his little description is actually a little bit bigger. It says, he did what was evil in the eyes of the Lord, even more than any of the kings before him. So he wasn't just bad at being a person. He was like really bad at being a person, and more bad or worse than everyone who had been king before him. And so this guy, King Ahab, he's the guy calling the shots right now. And he's got this wife. Her name is Jezebel, and she is nasty. She is a meanie. She is just very, very ruthless, okay? And she has pulled his heart in different directions to serve all kinds of other gods, okay? And so what's happening in Israel is a train wreck, all right? And she's trying to take out every prophet of God. So they've gone on hunts to just kill as many prophets as they can because they want to eliminate the voice of God. And so you've got Elijah. He's the only one that remains at this point. All the other prophets, they've basically eliminated because they're trying to eliminate the voice of God. And he's been in hiding. God had led him out into this place away from all the chaos to a brook and basically said, I'm going to order some ravens to feed you every day and you just drink from the brook, okay? And so basically every day, birds are bringing him food, okay? How cool is that, all right? And then the brook dries up and God calls him to a town nearby and a widow is to take care of him. And so this widow starts taking care of him. And what's amazing is she didn't have enough food to feed him. But because God had directed their steps, Elijah said, don't worry, you're not going to run out of anything. And amazingly enough, they ate for days straight, always having enough, never running out. Well, her son died. And that was painful. And so he, as a prophet of God, prayed to God and said, God, bring this kid to life. And he does. That's pretty amazing stuff, okay? It's absolutely remarkable to think about how faithful Elijah was in the midst of some pretty difficult things. That would blow our mind if we were to see something of this. And so for him, he has tons of things to establish his faith on because God is proving himself constantly to care for him and meet his needs. Well, God orders his steps to head back to Ahab. No longer is it to be hanging out in hiding. Head back to Ahab. And so he does. All right, he's not pumped about it, but he does. And he calls Ahab to get all of the prophets of Baal or Baal, depending on what Bible college you go to, all right? It will be pronounced differently. But says, round up all these guys that you're listening to, and we're going to have a throwdown, okay? We're going to test this thing. And so Ahab rallies all 450 prophets of Baal, and they set the scene for a test. And what happens is this. It's basically setting up a sacrifice, and it's you call out to your God, I'm going to call out to my God, and whoever shows up wins. That is who is God, whoever shows up, okay? And so Elijah says, since there's so many of you, you guys can go first. There's tons of you. There's 450 of them. There's one of him. You guys go first. Well, all day long they start shouting, they start singing, they start dancing. Nothing's happening. Nothing's happening. Here you have a sacrifice. You have all of these things that if fire were to show up, they would burn. And they're doing all these things to get Baal's attention to the point where they start cutting themselves, trying to get him to listen. And about halfway through the day, Elijah starts mocking them. He starts running his mouth because they're making all this ruckus and nobody's showing up. And he starts making fun of them a little bit. He even says that maybe he's asleep or maybe he's on vacation. He even says maybe he's relieving himself. That's Hebrew for he's pooping, okay? You can look it up. It's in chapter 18, verse 27, okay? He's throwing out all kinds of stuff. It's like maybe he's just too busy for you, okay? And so as it goes on into the evening in verse 29, it says this. After they've worked so hard, they've been raving all day long. All day long. It says that there were no answer, no reply, no voice, no answer. No reply, no voice, no answer. And so Elijah says, all right, my turn. And so he takes the altar, he builds the altar, he prepares the sacrifice and puts all of the things on it that would be burnt, okay? And then he says, dig a trench around it, fill it with water. Pour water all over it. Because when things are wet, it's hard for them to burn, right? Like, it just is. That's why people cover up their firewood if they want to have campfires, right? Well, he doesn't just do that once. He doesn't just do that twice. He does that 3 times. So this stuff is totally soaked. And so Elijah, in verse 36 of chapter 18, he calls on God. And he says, prove today you are God and that I am your servant. Prove today that you are God. and that I'm your servant. And in verse 38, it says this, immediately the fire of the Lord flashed down from heaven and burned up the young bull, the wood, the stones, and the dust. It even licked up all the water in the ditch. Now, when you see fire, what do? Run? Make s'mores. Were you guys ever taught to stop, drop, and roll? All of you are like, yes, that's what we're... Now, well, like if you... Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Just follow me here, Claire, okay? Like, well, that's what they do. They stop, they drop, they don't start rolling, but they start saying, this is God. The Lord is God. Yahweh is God. They begin to profess that He is who He says He is because He just completely proved who He is. And how amazing is that to be in that moment to see that? Well, it gets pretty serious because basically they seize all of the prophets to kill them because their God didn't show up because their God's not real. Well, word gets back to Jezebel. Remember Jezebel? Ooh, she's a meanie, okay? Word gets back to Jezebel, and just in a few verses later in chapter 19, she says the words, "May the gods also kill me if by this time tomorrow I have failed to kill you." See, she's been killing off everybody, and she's ticked because she has brought in all of these prophets to do what they do. Well, they just lost. And so what's so crazy in this moment, in verse 3, okay? In verse 2, she says that. In verse 3, it says this of chapter 19. Elijah was afraid and fled for his life. He went to Beersheba, a town in Judah, and he left his servant there. Then he went on alone into the desert, traveling all day. He sat down under a solitary broom tree and prayed that he might die. Time out. He was afraid and fled for his life because the gal said, I'm coming for you. This is the same guy that just saw God prove himself in front of everybody. This is the same guy that saw God prove himself by providing for him. This is the same guy who saw God raise a boy from the dead. This is the same guy who has been trusting God all along. And he says that he was afraid and he fled for his life. Just a handful of verses later, he's like, I quit. I'm out. I'm donezo. Kill me now. I'd rather die. He prays to die. He goes into like this depression, just like that. And here's my thought. Here's my question. How many times do we see God do something amazing in our lives, and we are quick to forget that He is who He says He is? How many times do we see God prove over and over again His faithfulness? And we will turn and run back the other way over and over. We freak out and we try to do things on our own all over again. Something that I've been wrestling with, and you can chew on this. How many times does God need to prove Himself to you before you trust Him? How many times does God need to prove Himself to you before you trust Him with you? With all of you? That's pretty convicting. Because we just love to do things on our own. And some of them, we're just not very aware. For him, it was fear. And maybe that's your story. Maybe like there's just things that are just you're fearful of, that they are paralyzing you. Maybe that is what is drowning out the voice of God in your life. Maybe it is guilt. Maybe it is shame. Maybe it is choices in the past. Maybe your life is filled with a bunch of what, and you don't know why you do what you do. That's what this whole journey is about, is digging in so that we can identify them, we can hand them over to Him, and He can set us free of them. We've all got different things in our lives that drown out the voice of God. Elijah was exhausted, he was fatigued, and he was intimidated. And he allowed those voices to be louder in his life than the voice of God. He allowed those voices to scream in his ear, to say that he should be afraid of Jezebel more than he should be afraid and fearful of a God who can show up and burn everything up. We allow these things to drown him out, and it's just a few verses later in verse 11 of chapter 19 where it says that verse that so many of us we've heard so many times, that the Lord was not in the wind, the Lord was not in the earthquake, was not in the fire, but in the sound of a gentle whisper, a still small voice. What in your life right now is loud? What in your life right now is screaming at you? What is blaring so loud that it's hard to think? Maybe it's school, maybe it's family, maybe it's mom and dad, maybe it's boyfriend, girlfriend drama, maybe it's work, maybe it's a boss, maybe it's a coworker that you just seem strangle, right? None of you have those moments? Anyway, yeah, immediately. Thought I was going to get amens on that. My intern just said that. He agreed with me. We have things in our lives, but we've got to be able to identify what they are, things in our life that are loud. What's causing you worry? What's causing you to stress? What is keeping you up at night? What's making you anxious? What is keeping you distracted, preoccupied, keeping you from hearing the voice of God? I mean, is it something that's running you ragged, running you into the ground? Are you fatigued? Are you tired? Is it owning you? We've got to ask ourselves these questions. We have to deal with the why behind the what. And awareness begins when we turn down the volume of life and make ourselves available to God. Awareness begins when we turn down the volume of life and make ourselves available to God. And here's the next thing I want to share, is that God's rhythm of rest helps us recover. It helps our recovery. In Exodus 20, when God is giving the law and he's saying, this is the best way to live. This is the way to be in relationship with me and the way to be in relationship with one another. One of the things that he says is, keep the Sabbath holy. Now, a word like Sabbath, we don't use that all the time, right? We don't hear words like that. We're like, what does that even mean, right? It means to rest, not to sleep, but to rest, to genuinely unplug, to disengage, and have deep, soulful rest. He says, keep it a priority in your life. And Jesus affirms that, because Jesus will remind us later, Mark 2:27, where he says the Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath, because he's talking with guys that are trying to keep all the rules, but they don't know the why behind the what. The what is the Sabbath, but they don't know why they're supposed to keep the Sabbath. They don't understand that it is the what that was created for them, because they are the why. Because God knew that they needed rest. God knows that you need rest. God knows what burdens you're carrying. He knows them. And he's waiting for you to hand them over to him. And he's speaking in a still small voice, but life is so loud, we can't hear him. That rest is so valuable. It's not just a down day. It's not just sleeping. It's soulful rest. We need our rest. We need recharged. And this is a struggle of mine. Some of you guys, you know my rhythm. It moves fast. You know that I'm responsible for a handful of things. And it puts me in a different place all the time. If I'm not doing one thing, I'm definitely doing another thing, or I'm being asked to do something else from just various things, okay? It's tough for me. There's a battle for me. That's just me being honest. It's not easy. But if I didn't surround myself with people that hold me accountable, if I didn't surround myself with people that are going to challenge me, if I did not allow my wife to tell me, hey, you need to just leave the phone in the other room, you can answer all those text messages later, like, I'd be a mess. I'd be an absolute mess, because life is moving so fast. But Jesus is our model in the midst of the mess. That's who he is. And over again in the gospel, we see this. Luke 5:16, that's when you hear him say, Jesus often withdrew to the wilderness for prayer. People are clamoring, crowds are clamoring for his attention. He still retreated. He still pulled away. If you look at Mark 6:31, you got all kinds of stuff going on here. But Jesus says, he says to the disciples, let's go away from the crowds for a while just to rest. So he's saying, this is the course we're going to take. Let's just go away for a little bit and rest. Well, they can't even do that. They're being swarmed by crowds to the point where they don't even get to eat. Okay? So Jesus says, okay, I'm going to preach. I'm going to feed 5,000 some odd people. Okay? And then I'm going to turn them loose. And I'm going to tell the disciples, he tells them, get in the boat, start heading out on the lake. I'm going to go up the hill, and I'm going to pray for a while. Because he's still making it a priority to step away from all of the noise, from all of the clamoring, from all of the chaos, so that he can disengage with what's going on and re-engage with the Father. He makes it a priority. We see this pattern over and over again in the Gospels, that Jesus makes rest a priority. If we're not rested, we're not ready for what's next. If we're not rested, we are not ready for what God is going to do next. And we're not even ready for what he's going to do now. So how are you finding rest? Where are you withdrawing? Where is your place that you go? Your quiet place, away from everything else. Where do you take off and just disengage? And again, I'm not just talking about sleep. Yes, you need sleep, but I mean rest. I mean real rest. For me, it's my kitchen table, dining room table, whatever you call it. It's a table at 5:30 in the morning. And you're like, you're an idiot. I'm not even a morning person, but I know this. That's my quiet place. Because my family's asleep. And nobody else in my neighborhood's up. And it's just me and him and his word and a journal and a pen. Because it's the only quiet space I've got sometimes. You got to find that, you got to guard it, and you got to keep it. You have to. I can't stress enough, get in God's word and stay there. But you got to turn the volume down on everything else if you're going to be able to hear what he has to say. It's hard to be quiet. It's hard to be still. Deadlines are constantly creeping up on us. That's what happened to Moses. That's what happened to Moses. Stuff still needs done when you're wrangling tons and tons of people out in a desert. And what he did, he had to learn how to delegate. He had to learn how to hand things off. He had to learn how to lead. He had to learn how to say, not now. See, there's a difference between no and not now. Some things can wait. Some things have to wait. He had to delegate before he would spontaneously combust. And we have to as well. This world's in a hurry. It's moving pretty fast and doesn't even know where it's headed. But something we've said before, something I've said several times, the world's values are not God's values. Disciples discern the difference. We live in a mess. And the world is preaching all kinds of different messages right now. The world's values are not God's values. Disciples discern the difference. And the only way we discern the difference is we listen to the voice of the Father. Saying no is not saying not now. We've got to be able to discern that. Some things have to wait. And some things need your no because God wants your yes. He's calling you to something, but you're running to something else. Some things you just got to say no to because he's wanting you, calling you to say yes to what he has for you. Without rest, it's hard to hear what's next. So are you busy or are you hurried? Busy means you got a lot going on, okay? Sometimes when we think of being busy, we're like, oh, that's bad to be busy. Being busy isn't as bad as being hurried. Being busy means you got a lot going on, okay? Being hurried means you got a lot going on and you're not present in them. It means you're just kind of skimming through. It's okay to be busy. It's not okay to be hurried. I know for me, that's one of the tensions that I'm in is because I get tired. Yes, I'm old. I nearly broke myself today. I was running, still dark out, and I felt this weird in my leg, and I was like, oh. I kept running. I'm gimping around right now, but I get tired. I'm running out of energy if I don't prioritize rest, if I don't prioritize the things that re-energize. And my thing is, I'm busy, but I'm always present. And when you choose to be present, you will be drained. But that's why it's so important to protect your times of rest. Don't be hurried. Don't skip that. Disciples discern the difference. If we don't disengage from what's going on outside, we can't engage what he's showing us inside. And awareness begins when we choose to rest. So ask yourself, what needs to change? And that's what you're going to be digging in on your groups here in a bit, identifying things that need to change. And one of the things that's helped me is a prayer that I've said and shared with us often, this simple words: reveal, remove, rest. God, reveal in me the things that I can't see. Reveal to me the things that are in the way that keep me from being in right relationship with you. What is in the way? God, show me what they are. Remove them. Remove the things that I cannot move. Because I want to rest wherever you have me. Awareness begins when we choose to rest. Let me pray. We're going to get in our groups.